Rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's good to see former board member Don Sokol here. So glad to see you, Don. Okay, Dr. Hibbert, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Yeah, at this time, we'd like to welcome to New Albany Floyd County Schools Pat Terrell and Robin Winston of the Winston Terrell Group. We're going to present on concerning public outreach strategies. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't know how to do this. I think I'll stand over here. Is that all right? Can you all hear me? Or do I have to stand there for recording? Can you hear me?
That mic comes off too if you want to carry it.
No. Okay. I can do what? Nah, that's okay. I'll do this. Let's see. How do you take? You can tell we don't know how to take mics off. There.
There you go.
You sure? Those are fine?
Obviously don't do karaoke that much.
That's right. Where's the bouncing? My name is Robin Winston. I'm from the Winston Terrell Group. We're based in Indianapolis. We have been very, very successful in referenda so far. We've done 13 and we've won 12. This last cycle we won 4, 1 in Beech Grove, 2 in Perry Township, and 1 in a place called Cedar Lake, which is in southern Lake County up in northwest Indiana, and Wayne Township. So they were operating referenda and capital construction. Perry Township was $62 million, and it resulted in a referendum victory on both. Those won like 53 to 55%, but they still won. In Beech Grove, we got 73% of the vote on capital and operating. In Cedar Lake, we won by 189 votes. Big landslide up there, but we won about 51% to 49%. And then, the bottom line is that we were successful. Okay, we watched other districts lose, and they spent a lot of money both on consultants and trying to win over public support. We try to make sure that our dollars are used effectively, and that in the final analysis, it is not about whether or not we spend a lot of money. It is about whether or not we've been able to be successful. We've done rural districts. We did Hebron with 2,000 students. They had lost the previous referenda by 4 votes. They brought in our big talented team and won by 23 votes the next time around. But our secret was we registered the senior class that was eligible. 77 senior class people were eligible. 47 voted, and we win by 23 votes. Okay? So we tried every nook and cranny. We also did Wayne, which is a big school district, urban school district. We did Pike, which is another big urban school district for a new elementary school. We're very, very familiar with your community. Pat is from Paoli. I went to the University of Louisville and worked in city government there. So we're familiar with southern Indiana, and so Floyd and Clark counties in this area are not something that required us to put into GPS. We knew how to get here. We didn't know how to get to this building, but we knew how to get on to Lee Hamilton 265 Parkway. We put together a packet for the school board members, but I'll just kind of walk through the highlights of it with them and with you. The first thing you're going to see on there, members of the board, is we always involve you. We're never going to be able to do well on a referenda unless you're involved. So we have regular meetings. We welcome the public to attend those meetings. We ask that you attend. You give us outstanding advice. While we may say all this stuff about how we know the neighborhoods, if you asked us to get to 3 streets here, we probably couldn't do it. No Elm. We know that Spring, and I'm not going to go any further. So Grant Line Road. But the bottom line is that we work with you because you know your community much better than we do. You know what works, and you'll keep us grounded. So right off the bat there, you're going to see a resident holding up a yard sign. We tried to make it look like it was Kids Arts yard sign. You see that there were T-shirts. we made up T-shirts and sold those to raise money for the referenda, because you have to do that in order to have a successful referenda. But more importantly, if you're going to do public outreach, you have to have something that the public can see. So that's the first thing. If you go to the next page, probably the most startling statistic that we confront is at every juncture, we have to face the fact that about 9 out of 10 people that vote, 9 out of 10 people that vote do not have a child in school. 9 out of 10 people that vote do not have a child in school. So people may say, well, we have 12,000 students, which means you probably have about 7,500 or 8,000 parents, but still there are more people outside of the school district, parents, that vote. And when you look at who actually has the propensity to vote, it's usually an older voter that remembers New Albany schools when they went there, and they wonder why you need to spend the kind of money that you're talking about. So we usually work with you on public outreach to talk about the fact that your property values are directly tied to the quality of your schools. We just did one this morning, Superintendent, for Washington Township. 6,200 people in that township do not have a mortgage. If they don't have a mortgage, they probably are older and they've paid off their home. So when you come in and start talking about a property tax increase to somebody that doesn't have a mortgage, you better start talking about what the value of their property will be with good schools. So that's the tie that we try to make there. We also face the fact that no matter what you say about technology upgrades or what you're trying to do or classroom sizes, everybody swears there were 120 kids in their first grade class. It's like, I don't know why they need to keep it at 30. There were 160 in my first grade class. You know, and besides the dirt floor and the fact that there was no air conditioning, you hear all those things, okay? So we had to counter that by pointing out property tax values. You have to point out that it's probably a good thing for workforce development for people to be well qualified, that you have a good pipeline for that. And we use a lot of third-party validators. And you know who that usually is? A realtor. A realtor testifying to say that property values do matter does resonate with voters. Okay? So I'm going to fly through here, then I'm turn over the mic to Pat. The next thing that you have there is what we call the practical planner. And that's a syllabus. Basically, it's nothing more than a week-by-week game plan of what we have to do, working with you. We ask you what's going on in your community, what are major events, what are things that could be going on that we could help with, how can we have a presence at them, how do we maximize them, if there's basketball games, how do we maximize our presence there, if it's football, how do we do that? But the fact of the matter is you know better what works in your community than, oh, there you go. Okay. Can we go to the slide? It'd be the third slide. Okay. And you can't see it really that well, but it's a week-by-week. Oh, they can see it. Okay. It's a week-by-week breakdown. We work week-by-week to make a game plan. Now, what that usually does, superintendent and members of the board, is it establishes accountability. So if you say you're going to be the volunteer coordinator, then we say, okay, great. Then let's try to start recruiting volunteers. But if after 3 weeks of being the volunteer coordinator, you don't have any volunteers, then we're probably going to have an assistant volunteer coordinator available to assist you, okay? Because the bottom line is we have to get that done. Can we go to the next slide? And Pat, you can jump in here. Okay. Okay, some basic questions. Who can vote? Only registered voters in the school corporation. So one of the very first things that we do is this is the 50th year of the Voting Rights Act. So we try to use that as an impetus for students and other people to get registered to vote. So one of the first things that we do is public record, measure the number of people registered to vote against the parent list and the staff list. We have seen that in Wayne Township, 88% of the people in the township that were parents were not registered to vote. Only 12%. 88% out of 11,800 were not registered to vote. Conversely, in Washington Township, 71% were registered to vote. So what used to happen to folks when referendums first started, they just said, well, we'll win because the parents will vote. Not if they're not registered. So we will try to make an impetus for registering. And I mentioned the senior class in Hebron that we did. That did work. Because they are, if they're eligible, if they're 18 by election day, they can vote. And for many of them, it would be the first time they voted. So who can vote? Who can donate? Anyone can donate except those that presently have contracts with the school corporation. So if they have contracts with the school corporation, they cannot vote, they cannot donate to the political action committee. But if they want to support the school in other endeavors, they can do that. So if they want to help with a newsletter or things like that, they can defray those costs. Should we have a political action committee? You have to have a political action committee. Okay? Now, we usually steal the word taxpayer. I don't know what your previous committee was called, but we usually put the word taxpayer in all of our political action committees. So, it would be New Albany Taxpayers for Better Schools, Taxpayers for Better Schools, because we grab that immediately to remind people that you all are all taxpayers. You're not some group that, they're not taxpayers, they just want to take our money. No, you're taxpayers. You pay the same taxes that others do, in some cases much more. Should you poll? I don't know. It depends. A poll is a snapshot in time. You don't poll after Christmas because people are livid that they can't get down the street. There's snow on the street. The Christmas card bills have come due. The last thing you want to do is call somebody and say, would you like to give more money for your local schools? And they're looking at their Visa bill, their Discover bill. Because I don't know about you, I have a 15-year-old, and a bag of Army Men was a big deal for me. But now if it's not an iPad at $300, it's like, wait, you got more in one gift. Like a Christmas tree used to be like this. Now it's like the Christmas tree is like two things under the tree. You can have one of those little small tabletop ones. But the dollar per gift is a lot more. So you have to be careful when you ask people about when you should poll. If we go to the next slide. We try to help you design your direct mail. We're very careful in cost. I was very involved in politics, and I always remember that the people that were the direct mail consultants always said, you need more direct mail, because they made more money. So we always come back and say, well, not if you mail to people that aren't likely to vote, haven't voted in years, and maybe some of you all have been at home and never missed an election, yet you get 7 pieces of mail. And you're like, why? You had me at it's time to vote. But still you get 7 pieces of mail. Plus it makes you angry getting 7 pieces of mail. So we try to do direct mail with our clients. Very few people don't think. See how our question was, don't you agree that they deserve safe transportation to school? I'm very concerned with anyone who said no. They don't deserve safe transportation. Watch out for that person. Don't get near them. Because if they don't think they deserve safe transportation, that's a big issue. We used a third-party validator on this piece who was the former mayor of Beech Grove. And if you notice, we said he was the former chief of police. So we're talking about student safety and those things, so it's reiterated by a former mayor and a former chief of police. Try to make our photos diverse, but we try to make that piece resonate. Generally, the pieces of mail we use are about the size of a Bed Bath & Beyond mailer, so that they're obnoxious enough to be in your mail, but not too obnoxious, but we hope that you will read them. You can go to the next slide. We continue to talk about other direct mail pieces. Unfortunately, you can't see this one right here on the left, but in Perry Township, Superintendent, they had 26 trailers? Yes. They had 26 trailers for kids. So the first thing we asked the school district to do was move the trailers to the front of the schools so that the public saw the trailers. No point in ducking them behind the building, so we moved them to the front of the schools. And guess what happened to us? One of the neighborhood associations wanted to file suit because they thought the trailers were unsightly. It's like, yeah, go ahead, file that suit, please. Then we purposely waited and took a picture of kids in the snow walking from trailers to the school. Because what happened in this district is you had to radio ahead and say, Timmy's leaving my trailer. Somebody had to be at the door of the school and say, I've got Timmy. They had to wait till he took care of whatever he had to take care of. and then he had to come back home and come back to the trailer out in the snow. And that just totally, and while he's gone, he's not in the classroom. So that's disruptive. So we wanted to make that point there. Could we go ahead and move to the next one? Superintendent, if we could spend a few minutes on this. This is our bread and butter, and this is basically the voter file. And the voter file is something that we started working on, Pat, about 95? 95, 96, in a campaign for a guy named Frank O'Bannon, who we were very close to. Registered voters, basically there are 4.3 million in the state. It is kind of scary, the information that they have about all the associated data on voters, but you'll look here. If you could see on the far right, we know the sex of the voter. That's important. We know their age. We know their voter status. We look at their voter propensity. We give them rankings. So basically what happens is a natural ally of ours is female voters between 25 and 60, because they're generally the parents or the teachers that are involved in their kids' education. We can come back and sort that by birth date. We can come back and sort it by propensity to vote. We can tell you whether they're a homeowner. There's a lot of information that we derive from the voter file. So why do we do that? First off, so that you don't get a piece of mail and then your husband get a piece of mail in the same household. We try to household it. So that you don't get a piece of mail that talks about another school district. So that we can advise you where you can vote that day, or if there's vote centers, tell you about the hours of those. It gives us a lot of, and even in some districts we run the phone list so that people can make phone calls, volunteer phone calls. And what we usually do is run them by the age of the voter. So if you have somebody at home that says, I'll call at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're 68 years old, then they get a voter file list of people that are older, because they're more likely to be home, because you don't want to tangle with calling them at 6:30 with the national news, or at 7 with Wheel of Fortune, or at 7:30 with Jeopardy. You don't want to tangle with any of those things. Leave that alone. So we try to get those kind of calls out of the way. But it does help you save money when you do your campaign. Next slide. These are where we've won. School District of Pike Township, a $22 million elementary school. We were successful there, 70-30 in that one. Elkhart Community Schools, we won 2 referenda there. There they were making kids walk 2 miles a day to school. So to dramatize that, we had the administrators and students walk from 2 miles away with television cameras following them, so people would see firsthand how far 2 miles was. Unfortunately, they waited till 10 o'clock that morning, and it was about a 40-degree day. It was not a typical sub-zero or whatever, very cold day that these kids walked in. In Boone Township, that's Porter County Schools, there was an operating referenda. In Perry Township, we've won there 4 times. So 62 million plus 52 million. So $114 million of buildings, construction, and operation there. Beech Grove was about 10 million. Hanover Community School Corporation was operating, and Wayne Township was operating $67 million there. Next slide, I think, is it. So we would be very interested in working with you. My business partner, Pat Terrell, is here, can answer any other questions. I can answer any questions that you have. And I would encourage you to really make a steadfast effort on public outreach. You have a great story to tell. Your schools are doing well. You're one of the largest employers in the county. I think the hospital's the one larger than you. I get business first at home. I was reading it the other week in the book of list. You're one of the biggest employers in all of Kentuckiana. So we would think that you'd be able to position yourself well. I know you're going to sit there and say, yeah, you're going to tell us you can position yourself well because you want to get a contract and make money. No, that's not really true. That is true partially, but the other part, the main part is we support public education. We have always done that from days that he was an assistant to Frank O'Bannon to when I worked for him as state chair. So that's about it. Any other questions? Or any questions? Pat, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I think if we get into the voter file stuff, we can talk about that.
Okay. We've already done an analysis of your voter indexes. We pulled that data. We read about your, let's see if I get this right, 9 elementaries, 3 middle schools, 2 high schools, early learning center, Prosser Career Center. We researched, we knew Dr. Snyder when he walked up and shook our hand. We've tried to do all of our research. We do know New Albany. But whether you hire us or not, just keep in mind the things that resonate the most with voters that do not have a child in school is what's going to happen to my property values. That's in a lot of people's cases, probably people here, it's your 401k. You know the value of your home every day, every hour. You know the value of your home and what's going on. If people are more out migration and aren't moving to New Albany, it's going to be hard to sell a home. But you're in a catbird seat, because having lived in Louisville, I can tell you that people like to live here, and look across the river. It's a much better view. So, any questions that we can answer?
I have a couple. The first one's based on your comments on public outreach. Do you guys we have not, to my knowledge, we have not done any polling, if you will, on why we did not win the first referendum. So do you do any groundwork to establish, with the community, why did you not vote for this, and what will you support?
Yes, ma'am. Is it okay I talk from here? You still meet me with the mic?
Still mic. Yeah, it's recording.
All right, because you're recording. That's right. Yes, we do that. The question was about polling. And we recommend it's before you dig. Basically, we would like to know what's going on with the district and how people feel. We want to test the mood of people about the community, about the district, what they know about the district, and then we would drill down and ask some of those questions. If they indeed did vote against it, or if they voted for it, we'd like to know that.
And what does that look like? How do you do that?
You build a representative sample of probably we'd poll about 300, 350 here, Pat?
Well, yeah.
About 300, 350?
Right, and then you could also do the online stuff.
Right. It's a variable that the board has to decide. In Beech Grove, we did an online survey to make it easy for folks to go on. It saved money. But we warned and told the superintendent there, but you got to do a survey out in the public too. Because you can't expect a 71-year-old or even a 41-year-old maybe to go on, click on the blue line, get on the computer and do the survey. So you bifurcate it a little bit and let people that are with the staff and the students do the survey. Okay. You can do a survey that way online, or you can do a survey by phone. You build a sample so that it reflects the diversity and the demographics of your district. And you make phone calls and you just tabulate the data. Then we get what are called crosstabs back that tell me what did female voters over 50 say about this issue. How did the community care about the future of its community? Do they care about the future of the community? We've done some, sir, where we get back that 25% of the parents were not keen on the school district because they didn't know. But right now, with 89%, and we've not done the number of parents because we don't have a parent match, but how many registered voters they got?
Total active is 45,288.
So you have 45,288 registered voters in your district. And so when you household that, what was a household?
26,000.
26,000 households. So we would come back and see, out of that, build a sample that's reflective of the diversity of the district, age, gender, and those things, and do a sample of about 300 to 350 calls. Or you have people go online, and we take the parents and staff out of the call program, and they can go online and do it. We found when we do the online, teachers do complete that survey. Staff does too. We put things in there to prevent people from going on 7 times and completing the survey. But phone takes about a week and about 5 days to tabulate. So about 2 weeks from start to finish. And you help us devise the questionnaire. You approve the questionnaire that we use.
Because all I know from the last referendum is that New Albany Floyd County voters, they support public schools, but their no vote to me said you don't support this project. So obviously we want a project that's going to win. So if you do this polling and you find out that the community really isn't supporting the dollar amount, say, that we're putting on there, Will your polling gauge that so you can advise us on what our community will support? So
Sure. That happened to us in Cedar Lake. First survey they did came back and said there wasn't support. But we won the referenda because it gave us who wasn't supporting, what and what their issues were. And then we used public outreach, newsletters, calls, knocks on the doors to try to persuade those folks to come around because we knew what their issues were for being against it.
So you potentially will advise us
Yes, ma'am.
of what that dollar amount may or may not be.
Right. Now, there's some dollar amounts that are untenable. I mean, if you're talking $30, $40 a month, that's pretty hard for people to swallow on an average house. But then again, a house in a more affluent area of your district is obviously going to pay more than some other places. So we always put a tax calculator online on the website so that people can plug in their residence and see how much their taxes would be under the new system. And if they have any questions, they can then go to the district and answer that question.
That prevents misinformation.
Yeah, that prevents misinformation. We've just won Perry, and a guy, clearly not a graduate of public schools because his percentage didn't add up right, but he kept saying that the thing was going to go up 151%. And then when you computed it, it was not 151%. But he had little signs all around the district saying, your taxes are going to go up 151%. Which if he'd have been smart, he'd have just said your taxes will go up by $100. But he put the percentage in there, which didn't resonate with people. But no, we put a tax calculator online and try to drive people to that site so they can plug in their residents and see and that's done by the Department of Local Government Finance. So it's not you making any mistake on the numbers.
And then in the contract that we were presented with, it's just from August through December. So if you could get a little more detailed and explain what is your role. January through May obviously is the big push months, and there's certain things that we can and cannot do, as you well know. So what is your role between January to the voting day, and who pays you? Because that's not in the contract.
Well, no one does. We do that as part of our contract as a volunteer. We're doing public outreach all the way through, trying to get newsletters to people, raise and enhance the school's image, use your marquees to tout the schools, make sure that there's community meetings that you attend, develop a brochure that can be disseminated to the public. We're doing that constantly leading up to the 1028. And that's not our choosing. That's a result of state law, which when this first started, Superintendent, you can back me up, would allow people doing, or even Dr. Snyder and anybody else, would allow people doing business with the district to donate. But in the continued effort that I believe to cripple and crimp public education, they took that away. So we realized that in the past we would have all been working together all the way through May, but you can't do that anymore. So,
or we'd have to be paid by the PAC.
Or we'd have to be paid by the PAC, which would mean the PAC would have to raise a lot of money and help pay us a salary on top of that.
So you will not be getting paid from the PAC?
No, I don't think so. There will be things, though, in the PAC that the PAC will have to pay for, like direct mail, phones, and things like that, that we will be a vendor working with you on that. Okay. But no, we're not paid a salary by the PAC.
And then to the question that you made the comment that if companies have a contract with us or do business with us, they can't donate.
To the PAC.
Okay, so if we have a company that, let's just say we have a yard sale company that we do contracts with. You're saying that they are not allowed to even donate yard sales or yard signs to us for that?
Do they do business with the school district?
Let's assume for this example that they do.
Well, if they do business, the law is pretty specific. If they do business and have a contract with the school corporation, they cannot donate to the Political Action Committee.
Services or money, correct?
That's a curveball. The services of their company or their individuals?
Let's say somebody has a media outlet and they want to produce our commercials for free. Mm-hmm. Are they allowed to do that?
Do they do business with the school corporation?
They do.
Then I would say probably not.
They don't have a contract, but they do business with us where we pay them does that make sense?
They're a vendor of the school corporation?
Yes, sir.
Then I would say probably not.
Just Robert, I can just read this. A person or organization that has a contract or arrangement with a school corporation to provide goods or services to the school corporation may not spend any money to promote a position. So they cannot give to the PAC.
And they can't donate either, or they can't.
Services, no. 'Cause
They
that's
cannot
considered
donate.
money.
Goods or
That's
services.
in kind or whatever. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Robin, I know in a lot of this you said, we do this and we do that as a consultant. Exactly what part is your role, say, in the survey versus our role, and how many resources would you say we would need to conduct these surveys?
Well, you would.
And man hours.
Okay. You would contract with our firm to do the survey. We've tried
I
before.
was going to say that if she's talking about doing it with volunteers, that's different than doing the paid vendor.
Right. We would recommend that you contract to do the survey and that you hire a vendor.
Okay.
We, in our erstwhile efforts to save money, have tried to use volunteers to do surveys. And after a week, at least with that cadre of volunteers, we had 37 surveys completed. By having a paid vendor, they bring as many people online with predictive dialers, tweaker mics, and they knock it out in a few nights. That survey generally costs you about $6,500. That's outside of our contract. Most of the money goes to the phone vendor. Your role in that is to help us approve the survey instrument. Our role is to build the sample, select the vendor, coordinate the calls, do the analysis, and present it back to your board. So that's how that breaks down. Now, if you try to do it like you'll see, I think Pat gave you one for Washington Township. That's an online survey. That basically resulted in cost for getting that printed, disseminated to the public, disseminated to the staff online, the parents online, and they went on to do that. That was considerably cheaper than a phone survey. But here's what happened. I think we got 1,600 surveys. 1,600 surveys, 500 were teachers, 200 were staff, 900 were parents in a district that has 80,000 people.
Right.
So it wasn't real representative of the public. The survey by phone is much more representative of the public and gives you an early indication of whether or not you have support for what you're trying to do.
Do you limit that to to landlines versus cell phones, or can we call
we have the best way to reach that person that they have helped us determine. So some of them will be cell phones and some of them will be landlines. And it's indicated as such on the database that we have as to whether it's cell phone or landlines. But now, remember Corbett, right now somebody's changing their phone number.
Right.
So we go out and we sweep the phone numbers again for change of address, most updated phone records, and then try to come back, because it doesn't behoove the vendor to have a bunch of bad numbers. Then they're just burning up staff hours and still having to pay those folks. So that's it. But then once again, ma'am, we would be very careful and work with you on when you think it's best to call. As I said before, you don't call in January because the weather's bad. People generally are in pretty bad moods, and they've had their Christmas bills come due, so you don't want to talk about that then. But you might want to do it sometime later in the fall once school is underway to see where things are.
How do you perceive our end of the deal being represented as far as our resources and your contact person, point of contact, who's managing the project on our end? What do you expect from us?
You mean on the survey or the overall?
Overall running this.
We would want your active involvement. I mean...
expect us to have one person dedicated to that?
No, ma'am, as many as you want to have dedicated.
I mean, like as far as the main point of contact to organize the project, like a project manager or something.
It would be the PAC chair that you all would be saying to us, I think this would be a good PAC chair. But the only prohibition on your involvement as board members is you have to watch your sunset. Is your attorney here by any chance? Okay. You have to watch out to make sure you don't violate any meeting provisions, so you don't have a quorum at the PAC meeting to discuss the PAC. So we can't ever have, how many members do you have? 7, so I guess you can't have more than 4 at a meeting? More than 3? Is that what it is? Okay.
And how else we would manage it too is we have, as part of the group that we put together, the working group, we would have different coordinators. We call them coordinators. You can give them a title, whatever. But like a database coordinator, and that will be somebody that the person that we're working with that's going to be handling all the databases and all the technology stuff that we're going to be putting through. The second would be a social media coordinator. We'd want somebody that's just going to be responsible for dealing with the website and the Facebook page and some of that traffic. A volunteer coordinator is probably going to be the most important coordinator that we can identify, and that's someone that's clearly going to be working with the volunteers, and again working with us and with you guys on the direction that we want to give those volunteers and what activities we're giving them to do. But like, as Robin said, say we've got 300 phone calls that we want to make, and so we talk to the volunteer coordinator. Can you give us 20 people that can make 25 calls a piece over the course of 10 days that can get these calls made? And as it gets closer to the election, we'll have somebody that's going to be helping coordinate just the election day activities and all the coverage at the polls and coverage at the different precincts. We'd want to have a very aggressive absentee ballot program down here this time, so we would want somebody working with us that's working with us on the absentee ballots. So there's different elements of the campaign. We would want to have a person dedicated to that responsibility, but the overall management of it from your group is, again, your group, you're the chairman of the PAC or whomever is decided it's going to kind of be the point person, the main contact that we're going to be talking to. If it's just in general conversations, and if it's specifically talking about, a database or volunteer or something like that, then we would have those folks identified as well.
How does your data show or reflect how you reach out to the people who just didn't vote? It seems like there could be ways to try to convince a no voter, but it seemed like there were so many people that didn't vote. So does that tell you it's apathy, or they're against it? Or because it seems to me that if you didn't vote, you're not going to fill out a survey, and maybe you won't listen to the phone call and answer the question. So how do you reach out to the people, and how do you find out?
Well, the voter file is updated. It will show the most recent results of who voted and who didn't vote. So we'll pull down that data. One thing that we would do immediately is, if we win this agreement, would be work with you to match the parent file against the voter file, and then match that file against who just voted. So we could give you a report of parents who did not vote, staff who did not vote. We did a race in Perry Township. 83% of the staff did not vote in a referenda. We still won, but 83% of the staff did not vote. So we made a steadfast effort this time around to go after the people that did not vote most recently and try to enlist them to vote. So that's one way. One of the questions we would ask is, did you vote in the most, we already know this answer, but we would ask, did you vote in the most recent school referenda? And did you happen to support it, or were you against it? If you supported it, why? If you were against it, would you mind telling us why? And they may not want to divulge that. They may give you a no answer. But that also is a good predictor index for us. What has happened in our profession is we've moved from relying upon PTO, PTA, school board volunteers to do this work, to going to folks that do it as almost like a outreach campaign and try to get people to make sure that they vote. So that's how we would initially do that read. Another thing is just you. I mean, you're going to know the community. How many people, do you know how many people voted in the most recent? So 5,000 voted. You have?
5,000 in the city and
85 overall.
8,500 voted? Yeah. And what's the number of registered voters? What did you say, Pat?
40.
45 total active, but you've got 7,500 applicants.
Okay, 75. Okay, so 45,000 registered voters. You said how many voted? 8? So not even 20%.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, that's actually higher. I mean, Marion County, we had 7% turnout. Now, I don't know when you plan to do this, but if you do it next May, you will have a very active May primary electorate. It seems to me that one party, well, now both parties for president have, one party has 16 candidates, now 17 with John Kasich today. We have, or not we, but the other party, here, tipped your hand, Robin, tipped your hand. The other party has four, totally non-independent, four or five. So then you have the Attorney General getting ready to run for Congress, along with other people getting ready to run for Congress. So that's going to be competitive. Here, you have your incumbent congressman running for Senate. So that's going to be, so there's going to be probably a lot of, and you have a gubernatorial primary with the superintendent and the former Speaker of the House, and I don't know about the other parties' candidate. They may even have a primary on their side. So you could have a very active primary voter coming out this spring.
24 or 25,000 would be a good number.
Well, okay. In a primary?
For a presidential primary, looking at 812.
So that'd be a little less than 60%, a little over 50-some% turnout. Okay.
And because of that, of the dynamics of the primary race and stuff, and I know you've already got a PAC that's established and it's very active. We still would advocate looking at the membership of that PAC and trying to encourage folks from both political parties to be on it and both sides of the philosophical spectrum, so that you don't have candidates coming. That's the referendum issue is an issue in the May election, that you don't want folks running and saying, well, I'm going to support X because they're against the referendum. I mean, so you want to make sure that we've got the PAC as representative of the community and of the political community as well, so that if we've got some members of either side, of either party that are really struggling with supporting this, maybe if we had somebody from their party reach out to them and talk to them about why it's important, it might assuage some of the concerns if it's just coming from one of us or one of you guys who have a vested interest in it working. So again, that the primary dynamic makes us really look at the PAC makeup even more and make sure that we have a really representative PAC.
Can you give me a PAC size? Is there a sweet spot, high lows that you've worked with? I mean, how many?
Well, the group in Wayne, for instance, there was a group of probably 8 or 9 that were the really active, that were our database coordinators and those coordinators, and then there was probably a group of 25 that supported that group of 8 or 10. In Perry, they had a cadre of their PAC was probably 25 people, and they were all fairly engaged. Now in Beech Grove, the PAC was 5 people, and it was basically the people from the school, mainly the administrators from the school, that made up the PAC, because the superintendent was at Beech Grove, such a small enclave, and the superintendent is such a big personality within the community. Everybody knew him, and so he was doing a lot of the stuff that the individual PAC members were doing. He would just do them himself because he had the ability and time to do it. So, I mean, I would say that you don't want to get the group so big that they're not agreeable and can't work together, but we certainly don't want to limit if anybody wants to be on it and wants to be a contributing member on that PAC, then I certainly wouldn't want to turn anybody away.
Ms. Corbett, I just want to go back to your question about what we'd be doing. Our whole goal between now and December is to position the district as positively as we can in the community. The survey will tell us where our weaknesses are and what demographic groups we have weaknesses with. So, for example, and these are going to be tried and true. They work, Superintendent. We do what's called a gold card or a senior card. People over 60 get free admission to school events, plays, games, and things like that. Who do you think we mail to? People over 60. What's the high fidelity of people over 60, Pat?
The high fidelity of people over 60 is 5,000. 5,000
of the how many? 7,500?
Yes.
7,500 high fidelity voters in the district. These are the people that rarely miss. 5,000 of that number is over 60. So all of a sudden they're going to get a nice letter, maybe signed by the school board members, thanking them for being an investor in New Albany schools, inviting them to attend events that the school district holds at your facilities at no cost. Now, invariably somebody will say, well, we can't afford to do that. Rarely do you get a lot of feedback from that. But it's a tremendous gesture for their tax dollars. You want to be present to tout about the district in newsletters. We do electronic newsletters to save money, and then printed newsletters. Okay, so where does the funds come from for the newsletters? I think you asked if certain entities could donate to the PAC. No, but they can donate to the schools to defray public outreach activities. So if they want to do that, that's totally above board.
Like A-district signs or something.
Right. So like in Perry Township, we deployed yard signs that said Perry Township and A-district school district. We had those ready for parents to put in their yards, businesses to put in their yards. So all over Perry Township, all over Hanover Township were nice yard signs that touted the district. Cost of that was defrayed by vendors that had nothing to do with the referenda, but they could give funds to the school district in support of their outreach. If you're at basketball games or football games, we always want to tout what the district is doing positively. If you're having meetings of community groups, if there is Silver Creek, I know, is a community here. If there is a neighborhood association, or the animals, as Pat calls them, the moose, the elks, the lions, those groups, eagles, if they exist, the VFW, if you got a ROTC unit, or if you have somebody that just went and got deployed, take them to talk about that. To the senior class, we have used, maybe you bring in your congressperson or somebody to speak to the senior class. That's what we did at Wayne Township. We brought in former Senator Evan Bayh and Congressman Carson to speak to the senior class about the importance of voting. But in Beech Grove, we had a West Point graduate write to every senior and say, I'm in Afghanistan at a forward operating base. I'm fighting for people that I don't even know to vote. The least you can do as a Beech Grove alum is take the time to register to vote. So we pulled on that. So with more specificity, those are the kind of things that we do. Try to make sure the marquees tout the district. Every time we have a chance to do an op-ed from your superintendent, tout that. Talk about being the second largest employer in the county, the fiscal impact of that. And if you have, I guess Prosser Career Center, I'm assuming does some trades type things, tie into your labor unions and those folks and talk about what you're doing there to get a workforce ready. Because not everybody, as you know, is going to go to college. So we want to tout the district. And then our goal is to get that district. Remember, we said about 9 out of 10 do not have a child in school. So they don't know what goes on in your environs very much unless you tell them and tout it. All they know is it's this monolithic building on a hill or something they've not been in. They know if you have a problem. They know that you have people that have radar guns in the school zones. They know those kind of things. But rarely do they hear the positive things. And that's what we try to do up until and all the way, and we can do this legitimately all the way through May. Because the better, like in Beech Grove, they did a community day. They went around, the whole class?
No,
the whole school.
Yeah.
The whole school went around and they had people call in and say, I've got leaves, or I've got something that needs to be swept up, or I've got some old furniture. Now imagine 250, 300 kids literally swarming on a community, raking leaves, potting plants, doing that thing. That built a reservoir of goodwill and probably was attributable to them getting 73% of the vote whenever it came around. But those are the public outreach things.
How do you embrace local businesses to become more involved?
Well, I mean, there's lots of ways, but I would think some would be, first, find out if they're alums of your school. Some would be a consumer-driven business. I mean, you have 1,600 employees. You're buying fuel. You're eating. You're around the community. Tout those kind of things. You're probably catering. You're probably bringing things in here that are services. Tout that. But also, I don't know what you presently do to enlist the community in those kind of outreach, but certainly having the superintendent, and I think Dr. Snyder and somebody else can be the district advocates during this referendum process. You're allowed 3. Going out and talking to these groups on a regular basis would be also very valuable.
And then also, And then also, after the campaign part of it starts, any yard signs or any things that we could put in their business, in their window, if we make up the little bookmarks that Robin showed earlier, have them set in by any registers of supporting businesses. And so, I think if you've got an athletic program or you've got a calendar or something where businesses around the community are paying to be in that program or whatever, those seem to me like natural allies for the school district that would be easily to go to and say, hey, we need your help. Would you mind doing this, putting this in your window, putting these by your register, that type of thing. So certainly try to engage them. We normally have a list of the top 25 taxpayers in the community. And recommend that the superintendent, or if somebody on the PAC or the board has a relationship with that person, that they go and have an individual meeting with that business owner of that person, just to sit down and talk about the impact that's going to happen, because it's clearly going to be a major impact on that individual or that business. And so sitting down and making sure that they understand what the need is, I think is also a way to engage the business community.
Pat mentioned the placards. We recommend that this is what we used in Beech Grove, put it in the corner of the window, kept their school colors, put the Hornets on there, but we asked businesses to put that in their windows. We made up bookmarks. We asked people to put it by their checkout or their cashier places. Remember, if you do the A district sign, or as an A district, putting those in front of businesses. But the first part of this effort is designed to position the district as positively as you can with the public. You also know, I think you asked Board Member Knable, you asked, how do we reach out to folks? You also know who was against you. And maybe you make more of an overt attempt this time to try to bring them around or educate them, to just, if nothing more, keep them down a little bit from being so adversarial. Mr. Hines, you had a question?
I did. You've had 13. What's the average spend of the 13?
The PACs?
What was the average spend for the referendum?
You mean for the taxpayer? Okay. Can you bring that slide back up, ma'am? The last slide?
I didn't hear his question.
What was the average spend by the...
What was the spend by the school corporation to sign the contract, to pay the vendors, to run the program, to have the referendum?
Okay. Well, that's a couple of different questions, so I answered them for you. The school, Pike Township probably ran around, we were paid probably around $17,000, but we were only on board 3 months, and we won't do that again. The school corporation, there was a no tax hike for the residents. We got 70% of the vote. The PAC probably raised and spent probably $15,000 or $18,000. With a no tax increase vote, no tax rate increase vote, 30% still voted against it. And it was just to build one elementary school. Elkhart, that PAC probably raised around $35,000 or $40,000. We were paid, I think, around $24,000, but it was short term. Boone Township, I'll never do that again. We were on board 2 months. I still don't know how much their PAC raised because they never told me. Perry Township raised around $45,000 or $50,000 the first time. This last time around $45,000 or $50,000. We were paid around $28,000. Beech Grove City Schools, around $28,000 we were paid. Didn't start as early, but we've learned from that. We'll start earlier if we're going to be successful. That PAC raised around $12,000. Hanover raised around $5,000, and we were paid around $15,000, but they didn't employ us until February. We won't do that again. Wayne Township raised around $10,000.
About 14.
Okay, $14,000. He raised around $14,000. We were paid about $28,000. Okay.
And then as Robin mentioned, the ancillary costs of like the phone. Not all these districts have done a phone survey, but those would be that's another $6,000, $6,500 on top of that if they did a phone survey.
So let's go to the Boone County, since he said he'd never go there again.
Boone Township. Boone Township.
Boone Township, I'm sorry. And they only used you 2 months. What?
It was just
Why?
too. It was just too much. They were trying to do it because they had lost by 4 votes the year before, so they were trying to do it by themselves again. And the teachers, as an organization up there, went to the superintendent and said, "We're going to lose this again. We don't feel like we've got the right." The superintendent was leaving. There was a lot of things going on too that was simmering in the air. But the teachers union, we got the ISTA folks. President called us and said, "You really got to reach out to these folks in Hebron. They need help. They're going to lose again." So the representative from ISTA reached out to us. We went up there and had a good meeting with her, had a good conversation, and said, that we would jump on board and try to help them. But again, it was 6 weeks or 7 weeks to go in the campaign. It was just a hurry up, and it was just too much right off the bat to try to do. Now we got it done by 4 votes, but it was just a hands-on. I mean, we were up and down the road 2 hours to Hebron probably 3 times a week for that 6 weeks, and that was just a little bit too much.
I think this will be my last question.
Sure.
You are the only firm that I've heard present, so this is my first experience with this at all. So why would we choose you? What makes you guys different from other firms that do this?
I don't even know the other people that are doing it. So I can't do the direct comparison. I can only tell you about our firm. We're committed to public education, always have been. I'm a product of public schools, so is Pat. We've seen the evolution and the erosion of public education in our state. We live in Indianapolis. You can't, unless you're living in a cave, you can't miss it. This is our way of leveling the playing field for a lot of kids in future generations. I personally have a commitment to it because we have an internship program. We use public school kids in that. And it kind of is great to see the DLGF and other agencies make such restrictive covenants on what you can do, because there used to be a guy from IU, and I don't remember his name, but he would always issue a report that would say that half the referenda fail. Now, this last time, 9 of 10 won. So we're beginning to change it around a little bit and winning. And quite frankly, as we told Superintendent Ritz, when we told other people, look at what's going on here. 9 out of 10 people that don't have a kid in school are voting to raise their taxes to invest in schools. Nobody's forcing them to do that. But when they're left to their own proclivity, they're going to a ballot box on election day and voting to raise their taxes to invest in schools. So when we hear other folks say there's not support for public education, the empirical data is right there. There's 12 districts that voted to raise their taxes. We didn't sugarcoat any of this and say, oh, it might be, it could be. No, it's going to be. And you voted yes. So that tells me when 9 out of 10 people that don't have a kid in school are willing to go and say, I'll pay another $30 a month or another $15 or another $3, they're making an investment in their community and in their thing, and we're proud to be part of that. So that would be what I'd say.
Well, and I think that, and again, I agree with Robin that we don't know what the other folks would be pitching as well. But I think that the fact that we've come from campaigns, and campaigns is how we got started, understanding the voter file and the use of that voter file, and how to manage the budgets, and again, just the political stuff that's involved in the referendum campaign. I think we have a very good handle on, and I think we're flexible. I mean, this practical planner that Robin showed you is one that we work backwards from the election to, but it's a document that's in flux. I mean, it's always changeable. We call it, the football term, calling it audible. We call audibles regularly, because when something happens in the community, you can't say, well, nope, we didn't have that in the plan, we're not going to address it. When something happened in the community, you have to address it. You have to be flexible and able to do that. And I think we call ourselves Gumby, the old green character, because that's kind of what we do. If there's a situation and it has to be resolved, then we can bend, stretch, crooked ourselves around to get it resolved.
One other thing is we've learned that campaigns evolve, and this will be a campaign. There will be things that come up that somebody's going to call him at 11:30 at night or even later and say, this is going on, we got to address it. By having a plan, the best tribute somebody gave to me when I was in another job was, why are we going home at 7 o'clock? They had been acclimated to frenetic activity till 1 in the morning, people crazy and all that, but because we had a plan, we had a game plan for it. Now that let us add things on and do even more, but we try to work with you to have a game plan so that we're not saying, oh my gosh, are we going to order the yard signs this week? The printer just told us they need them by Thursday. We are 1 day away. Does anybody have the art? No, the yard signs have been in a storage facility for a month and a half. You've already identified facilities. When the weather breaks, we'll begin to put them into the ground. We've learned that. Now, the other thing is, you asked what differentiates us. We have a pretty good record. I don't know the other one's records, but I know their losses, and I know that this last cycle, Frankfurt called us because they had gotten rid of their consultant, and they asked us if we could help. It was too late, but rather than be jaded, we said, you know what? We'll send. Do you have the voter file? They didn't even have the voter file. We'll go ahead and order the voter file for you and send it to you overnight. So they got the voter. I don't know how they were even going to contact voters without a voter file. But we got the voter file for them. So we did lose one. I think, Mr. Hines, it's important you to realize we lost one. We lost in Mishawaka. And we learned a lot from losing that one. So, I'm sorry?
Such as? I mean, what did you learn?
That we had to have the full engagement, and the superintendent's no longer there. We had to have the full engagement of the superintendent and the board. We had a board member against us. So that board member was the validator of why to vote against the referenda. He's on the radio saying vote against the referenda. Okay? So we have realtors saying vote for it. They have school board members saying, I know the district, they're wasting money, vote no on whatever the date was. And then the superintendent was we one thing that we, Member Weishart, one thing that we will do is we'll work with you on when we'll meet. Generally, early on, it's about once every 2 weeks. The final couple months, it's every week at a prescribed time so that we can make sure that we can do it and you all can do it. But we made a mistake there that we were doing conference calls in between overhearing a crying baby almost every weekend and people ordering their breakfast. We decided they weren't focused on the referenda. Now, they lost that referenda 65-35. Mm-hmm. And we had told them early on the trends were going the wrong way, particularly when you had a board member. Not only did the guy oppose the referenda, he had yard signs printed all over the district saying that he opposed the referenda. He did a mailer. He was in a constant social media war with his own district saying, I'm against the referenda. He went on the radio and said he was against the referenda.
And gave misinformation about the referendum.
Yeah. He said the taxes would go up 38%. And that wasn't accurate at all. But he stuck to it. He talked about waste. He talked about bloated administrator salaries. I mean, he was the anti guy on referenda. So we learned, we always ask, is there unanimity of the board to move ahead on these things? If there's not, then we call no go and just leave it alone.
I have 2 questions, then 2 statements.
Okay.
First of all, so it's going to cost probably around $41,500 is what I'm understanding. We're going to pay you $35,000 over 5 months.
And then if you did the survey, yes, ma'am.
The survey would be $6,500. Mm-hmm. So that's about the cost to school corporation. Okay. And then, you probably answered it, and I apologize if I didn't understand it. If, again, we're wanting to build 2 new grade schools and then redo Prosser, our technology school. And in their survey, if they said, you know what, didn't vote for it, but you know what, if you just did Prosser and wait on the elementary schools, we would back that. So, I mean, is that something that you will find out if they, something that, I don't know, if if we would, just vote, if they just want to vote for the elementary schools and they don't want Prosser, are you going to tell us that? Will you be able to find out that information?
Oh yeah, the crosstab information will tell us that, because let's say Prosser's question number 6 and the elementary is question number 9.
Okay.
When we get the crosstabs, we'll get to see who said yes for number 6 and who said yes for number 9, and we'll have all that, who those voters are, and again, that voter voted that said yes, they'd support the elementaries, but no, they wouldn't support Prosser. And if the election was held today, would you vote yes? We'll know if they're a yes or no as well.
Okay,
So
we'll get that information. We can go forward. It's like, okay, we're going to drop one of the elementary schools then.
Absolutely.
So we will have that information.
Absolutely. I mean, matter of fact, in the sample poll question that Robin had up there, we were polling for a school district where the superintendent was convinced.
One more.
The superintendent right there. The superintendent was convinced that the community wanted 2 swimming pools.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was convinced of that. We polled, and overwhelmingly they came back and they wanted 0 swimming pools. They thought swimming pools was a totally a waste of money and not within what they needed. But the superintendent in the district was convinced that they were going to get 2 Olympic-sized pools, and they came back with the results were overwhelmingly no. And so we had to tell him that. It's like, superintendent, I know you want to build 2 pools, but you can't build any.
Okay.
So
I appreciate that candor.
I won't be asking for any pools.
Good.
Got plenty.
Ask for pools, then you say, no, there's no way. I listen to you.
I really like how you're saying the school board will be involved, or at least, we will have we'll be able to participate. We will have knowledge of what's going on, and we will be informed. I really do like that, because we weren't in the past. So I really like that. And just on a personal note, Mr. Hines and I were present at the other person that gave a presentation, a consultant. There's no comparison. There's no comparison between your presentation and his. None. And so yours is fantastic.
Oh, now our heart can start to beat.
Well, thank you. And
huge difference, because you're more detailed, telling the involvement, and I really like what I hear.
Well, I mean, thank you for that, and we do that because we know, again, going back from the lessons of Mishawaka. I mean, you asked earlier about the PAC committee. I mean, their PAC was literally the superintendent, the business manager, and one parent.
Yeah.
And as Robin said, he wasn't joking. We would have conference calls, and you couldn't even hear because there were so many distractions going on. And so we would hang up the calls on a Saturday morning saying, we're in trouble, because we couldn't get anybody to be involved. So we know the importance of having the more people involved as possible.
May I? Oh, go ahead.
I have a question. I'm sitting here and I'm excited, and I'm also a bit overwhelmed. What is our timeline as to, are we on target? Are we behind? What do we need to do? What do we have to have in place to get our part prepared for what you all are going to give us? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am, it does. First off, we have to work with you to, I guess, have a retreat. That would be what we'd like, to kind of lay down a timeline and hear from you what you and Dr. Snyder and members of the board know are the activities of your district. Don't forget, we're going to lose 2 vital weeks right there. How long is your spring break? So we lose 2 vital weeks with about 6 weeks before the election.
And you lose the weekend before the election.
And you lose Derby weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So those are things that we've got to lay into the timeline to get ready for. Those are things that are important. Now, some people obviously will stay in town during spring break, and some of the people that are the 89% that don't have a kid in school probably will be here. But we've got to lay down a calendar together, figure out how often we're going to meet realistically, and when is best to meet. We've met on Sunday evenings, we've met on Saturdays, we've met on Thursday nights. We've met whenever there's a consensus that it's best to meet. We've met by phone because, between the interstate traffic of one lane for I don't know how many miles and snow, there will be times where we won't be able to make it down here. And maybe times you won't be able to make it to a meeting place, but maybe we could still do it by phone. I wouldn't say that you're behind, Member Anderson, but here's what I will say. We still got another session of the General Assembly. We don't know what's next. I mean, I'm not being flippant. We don't know what's next. Last session, we had to beat back an effort to make these things once every 2 years. The only thing that saved us was Munster said, wait a minute, hold on. We can't go 2 more years. We just let go of 8 teachers. We're about to let go of 50. We're one of the most affluent districts in the state. One of your top ranked by academic performance. You make me wait 2 more years, I'm going to put our district in jeopardy. So they held off on that. I don't know what's next. We had no idea going into this General Assembly session that the whole RFRA bill would blow up like it did. We have no idea what the presidential, gubernatorial, senatorial, and congressional primaries will do to voter turnout. So the reason that we try to channel our own game plan is put your blinders on and get ready to do that, but be able to, as Pat said, to adapt to changing things going on. You may have people running for local office against the referenda to get votes. So we have to be prepared for those kind of things. But as far as the board, the most important thing is unanimity on doing this. We lost, as I said, in Mishawaka because we had one rogue member out by himself doing that. When we took on Perry's superintendent, you can attest to this. I mean, Perry was like pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. I mean, every week they fought. I mean, it was a WWF. You didn't even have to watch WWF. You just watch the Perry Township board meeting. They'd fight 200 people at a meeting, screaming and yelling, shouting the board down. But, that affected your ability to do a referenda. If you have something, I guess teachers or administrators, if you have some big headline that, New Albany schools waste money or something like that, or unfortunately somebody does something illegal as a teacher or whatever. I mean, just today, that chaplain got arrested in Indianapolis for soliciting somebody. This is, that makes you change all your direction all of a sudden. So we just have to be able to adjust. But the main thing is, if we have a game plan, what we want to avoid for you all is, okay, we hired you hot shots, but you didn't tell us we had to have our yard signs ready by March 1. We don't have any money for yard signs. Now we've got to pay a premium for yard signs because you guys didn't tell us about it. Oh, there's no disclaimer on it? Why is there no disclaimer on it? I mean, those are the things that are essential that we have to make sure that we do. You told us you were going to do phone calls. We had somebody call us and say they were called at 20 after 9. Why is that going on? Well, then, we fired a vendor that did that. Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of things we try to avoid for you.
And right now, it's not too late because the public outreach effort that we would engage with when we get with the superintendent and his staff and the team that's putting the positive news about the district out, work with them and start enhancing that. Here's the 6 things that you are currently doing. Well, here's 6 more recommendations that we might have you see if you can do these as well. So, I mean, right now, in conjunction with working with the PAC and the campaign type focus, we would also be working with the district, as Robin talked about earlier, in enhancing that image of positivity to the community. So I don't think you're behind the 8 ball, but you're not too far behind.
Becky, I was just wondering, would it be appropriate if we allowed some of the people in the audience to ask any questions they might have?
Not right now.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I just have, based on, this is a lot of information. And like I said, this is the first time I've ever heard such a presentation, which was very, very positive and exciting, and I appreciate what you guys have brought to us. I've heard Ms. Anderson say it's all overwhelming. It is, because it's a lot of information. I've heard you guys stress the importance of unity and the entire board being on board with this, which I believe the entire board is on with the referendum, okay? But because of the overwhelming, I need time to process. If I go to take my personal checkbook out and make a $45,000 purchase, I'm not just going to go that night, listen to a salesperson, and then sign it. I do understand the sensitivity of the time issue. But at the same token, I think the whole board needs to be present. I need to process. I need more information from other companies. We're obviously not going to have other companies present, so I just think it's a good steward to find what the competition is. Ms. Gardner already said her and Mr. Hines heard from another competitor, and this is like night and day, so that creates more anxiety for me because now it's like, okay, you guys sound wonderful. So I really just think that I would like to make a motion now just to table this so that we can have the whole board here. We have time to process, and basically I just need time to get more information.
Excuse me.
We have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I second it because I'd like to have George here as well.
We have a first and a second.
Are we saying we would vote on it next board meeting, or?
Yes.
I would like to table it and then have another meeting relatively soon so that everyone could be here and vote on this so that we can stay within the time frame that you're talking about, but then also allow us time to process and compare.
Do we have calendars to be able to agree on that?
Well,
Well, we've got to have a vote.
I know that, but I'm just making certain we
We
do.
have to have discussion.
Yeah, discussion. Yeah.
Well,
discussion.
we just asked if we were behind the 8 ball. Will we be now behind the 8 ball if it's a month later?
Do we have to wait a month?
Yeah, or do we have to wait a month?
I wasn't suggesting
No.
a month.
So
I
not
was
to-
just asking next week, or
Okay.
Yeah.
of course we need to get with George to get his schedule.
Right. Okay.
You're not behind the 8 ball. I think it's just the more time we have, the more not rushed we will be. I think it's because that's one thing about it that we've always said about the campaigns. One thing that we can't do is change election day. We're not going to be able to call the election division, the last week of April and say, you know what, we need one more week to kind of get some things ready. Can we push that off to the 12th? So the time is really the only thing that we don't that we can't change. So as we've talked about, we don't rush into something and do a 6-week campaign or a 2-month campaign. We could do those. We've been successful at them, but they're really hard, and they're really, I think, hard on the community and everything else. So the more time that you're able to do things with the school corporation, with the public outreach and that different thing, before the limitations kicked in for the 1028, that just allows more time for that type of stuff. So you're not behind the 8 ball at all, but just the more time we have, the more time we have.
Of course, we can't fix a date tonight because George isn't here. So maybe an email we could all.
Set a tentative date.
We'll just do it at the next board meeting because everybody can be there.
When is that?
This was a hardship on everybody. It was drama last week.
And of course, it's not a month away. Today's the 21st, so it's more like
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks of non-activity.
We couldn't
don't
have
wanna
it next Monday. Go ahead. Mr. Hines, did you have something you wanted to ask?
I think when Ms. Gardner said that she and I had heard someone else and that these fellows are much different, I would characterize the two presentations as the previous one being slick and this one being practical and down to earth. I don't see why we don't pick practical and down to earth tonight and give them 7 extra days, 10 extra days, 14 extra days, whatever. I feel confident that I know the way Mr. Gaunt will vote, and I think most everybody sitting around the table knows which way Mr. Gaunt will vote. And I just don't see a reason to put it off.
And I do not know how Mr. Gaunt's going to vote. I will not claim that I know how. And it's great that you had the fortunate to hear somebody else. And that's all I'm asking, is that I have the opportunity to do some research. But I respect your opinion, too, because you've got more information than I do.
Just clarification. There are really only 2 games in town with the understanding of the political process. The person that we interviewed last year, who's been very successful in the state, but has not as many, has more losses now than Winston Terrell. And so the other people, including Dr. Snyder left, but he actually interviewed a person from Chicago with an architectural firm. When we were working with Schmidt and Associates to do our facility study, and then they're the ones that did the 2 elementaries, the architectural work, they had a person on staff that would do that as well. But again, they were an architectural firm. It's as Dr. Snyder would say, fruits and vegetables, and we're dealing with the vegetable piece of it, the politics, which they are experts at. And that's how we're going to be successful. I won't be bringing you any other recommendations of any other consultants because, in my opinion, these are the winners and they're going to bring us to win. And today, and the reason why we're doing it so quickly, believe me, I would have just as soon not to have another board meeting until August, whatever it is, and we wouldn't have had the drama of when we're going to meet and all that kind of stuff. But I thought it was important after interviewing these 2 gentlemen for 2.5 hours. I also spoke with Jeff Butts. Dr. Butts is the superintendent at Wayne Township. Jeff and I have been colleagues for 10 years. He is an excellent superintendent, highly effective. He has nothing but praise. The only thing he warned me is that tell your people they're going to be tired. That's what he said. And then I also talked to Paul Kaiser. Paul Kaiser and I have known each other for 15 years. We worked together at Noblesville Schools. He's the superintendent at Beech Grove. When he got to Beech Grove, the same time I got to New Albany Floyd County, his transportation fund had been hit. And so their first go-around was, we're not going to have transportation. And so they won the referendum, and he said, I was brand new and it was dumb luck. That's why I won. And I won by, I think he said 62%. And he said, this last go-around, he hired you 2 gentlemen, and they won by 73%. And not only did they raise taxes, they raised taxes on the operating side for transportation and added more taxes on a construction side. So it was even more, and they won overwhelmingly with 73%. And of course, I want to tell you, he gave you both 90% of the reason why they won. He was going to hold 10%. So, I mean, those 2 people are highly regarded in my mind as superintendents in the state of Indiana. They run very good school districts. And again, I don't know why we would pause. And I understand Mrs. Weishart wanting time to ponder. But in my mind, we've already lost. We didn't have a consultant. And I've taken full blame for the reason why we lost, and I want to move forward with professionals. And I think, Dr. Snyder, you can chime in, but I heard him speak like 20-some times as I introduced him to different community groups. And the first thing out of Brad's mouth was, look, I'm not a politician. I've never done this before. And that's exactly what Dr. Butts said at Wayne Township. And he's highly respected, oftentimes speaks in front of people. He said, I'm not a politician. I didn't know what I was doing. So that's why we want to bring them in.
Well, if you're not going to bring another recommendation,
I have no other recommendation.
So, I mean, you can research, but you're not going to be able to vote on another company. So it's almost like tonight is, yes, we want them, or no, we don't want any consultant, basically, right?
I don't know who else we would bring in with the political power that these 2
Right.
gentlemen have with the voter identification, who's going to vote, and then what we need to do to ensure. I mean, the 3-ring binder they have is a bullet point of week by week by week from May until August the 1st of all the stuff we're going to be doing, consulting with them to make sure we win. And this is all about our kids, really, winning for our kids.
Call for the question.
Yeah. Okay, this is, there was a motion and a second to table this. Let's just go ahead and have the vote on that. Pam?
Mrs. Knable?
No.
Mrs. Anderson? No. Mrs. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
No.
Ms. Weishart?
Yes.
Mrs. Bardenauer?
No.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the consultants.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Hines and a second by Ms. Knable to hire Winston Terrell Group. Any discussion?
I just want to say that my vote is non-reflective of you guys.
Same here.
It
Same here.
really, really
I
isn't.
just kind of
and-
wanted to stand in unison and vote in unison, so I was.
And this is too important for our kids. We have already lost 1 vote. We have to win. We have to win for our kids. And quite frankly, maybe you guys are that. I'm not saying tonight that you aren't. But I don't want to just make a flippant decision when I have only one presenter. Because if we lose this again, that's a lot of damage to our community for years to come. Two losses in a short period of time, that's a huge thing to me. So I'm unapologetic about wanting more time to think about this because it's that important to me, and I want the full board to be here to vote. So please know this is no reflection on you. It is not a reflection on me being against a consultant. It's simply what I've said.
Superintendent, I mean, I don't know, I guess you use Robert's Rules of Order, so I'm just going to ask a point of personal privilege.
Sure.
So you haven't seen we've huddled here. We need unanimity on this. You know, I mean, I don't mean to deride anything that anybody's proposing. If I were that way, I could say, let's just vote this way. But if you have questions, I want to answer them.
Yeah, you've answered my questions for you
so
guys.
If you have trepidations, I want to try to respond to them. But, you know, as a consultant, I don't want to go into an event knowing that there were concerns about whether or not we should go into the event. I mean, I just would like to have unanimity on this, you know.
Again, my vote was not against you having you guys be our consultants either. Mine was more of a concern of stand in unison, vote in unison, so I was just kind of wanting to hear from George.
Would you anticipate you'll be at the next meeting? And do you want us back down here for the next meeting?
Excuse me. I think we've already voted, right? So.
Well, I mean,
a motion's on the table. So.
Motion's on the table. It can be withdrawn.
I'm concerned that if we are waiting around, first of all, I think Mrs. Corbett has checked into firms.
Yes, I have. I've done a lot of research, and from what I could see, they're the best. So, I mean,
so
I stand in support of them.
With that said, and in respect for Mrs. Weishart feeling the way she does, because we do want unanimity, and we also want to make certain that she's confident that we have the best. I don't know of any other firms that are out there that will be able to have, first of all, the availability, the knowledge of our community, and the passion for public education that has been expressed several times tonight, that we have within our time frame an opportunity to find someone that has the basic criteria that I feel are necessary for a successful referenda. But if we, and that's kind of looking at a crystal ball to see if there's anyone out there that will be available within the time frame that we have, that will be consistent with all board members being there, other than the board meeting in August, which I feel like we might do all of that and still find out that we had the best here tonight and we've lost time. That's my only concern in reference to this. Enough said.
A call for the vote. Is there any other motions or?
Can we repeat?
Well, the motion is to hire Winston Terrell Group as our consulting firm. Pam?
Mrs. Knable?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Weishart?
No.
Mrs. Gardnauer?
Aye. Passes 5 to 1. Okay.
Thank you, sirs.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay. Are we done? All right. Meeting is adjourned. Let's go.
I've got to stick it.